Good morning, I'm Sharon Chang. Today on BizTech Conversations, we will be speaking to Mohamad Halim Merican, board member of the Malaysian Association of Hotels. Good morning, Halim.
Good morning, Sharon.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, Halim, as the board member of the Malaysian Association of Hotels, can you share the overview of the association and also the industry in general?
The Malaysian Association of Hotels was formed almost 46 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and we are known as the national lead body for the hotel industry in Malaysia. To date, we have approximately 1,100 members, varying from 2-star to 5-star hotels.
Okay.
Yeah. And Malaysia, the registered number of hotels, registered numbers here is about 4,300. And there are three main associations which are dealing with hotels. Okay, we've got our association, we've got the Budget Hotel Association, and of course we have the Malaysian Association of Hotel Owners. Now they all carry different roles.
Yes, okay.
Okay, and our job, or rather our role as the Malaysian Association of Hotels, is basically to lead the industry in industry development in terms of service quality standards, to look at new things that are happening, in the current market, what's trending. So we are also the lead association whereby the Ministry of Tourism, for instance, or even the Ministry of Finance approach us for information, for data, in order for the industry to move in the right direction. The association works very closely with government because it involves a lot with the tourism, and we are also involved with the Ministry of Finance when it comes to the annual budget, which relates, of course, back to tourism. And our role also covers the well-being of the members, where we do not get involved in operation per se, but we do provide advice. We cannot, as an association, take on that role of telling a hotel how to operate.
Okay. Right.
We could advise based on government regulations, based on the requirements that the government agencies require. So we act on that behalf for the members of the association.
The COVID-19 pandemic has affected major industries, right? Typically the hotel industry, right?
Correct.
So how was the scenario like actually pre-COVID? In terms of the industry as a whole,
We started seeing some effect actually even as early as January, when China first announced it, or when it was starting to come out in China. We started seeing cancellations.
Okay.
We started seeing postponement of tourist arrivals, in particular China. Unfortunately or fortunately, Malaysia is very dependent on the Chinese market.
Yes.
Because of the way 1% of the Chinese market, if they come to Malaysia, that's
because a
enough.
huge population, of course.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we started to see this happening even in January, and of course Chinese New Year was D-Day. Cancellations started happening, and of course when it came to Malaysia and we started seeing the mass cases happening in Malaysia, which was sometime in March, the impact definitely saw a drop in the business. We definitely saw that hotel owners and hotel operators started to kind of like hit the panic button. But at that time, nobody knew how long it was going to be. So the panic button was probably not red, it was probably pink at that time. And as it got worse and we saw the pandemic being announced, and that's when a lot of our hotel members in particular started taking some drastic measures of closing the hotels and letting go their staff, etc., etc. From the association standpoint, out of the 1,000 members, we did a survey where 50% responded. Of that 50%, 15% decided that they wanted to close without an opening date. Another 30% said we'll close temporarily, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months.
Is it because they have a stronger balance sheet? Or they have been around for a long time?
Well, in the operation of hotels, the highest cost would be manpower. The second one would be utilities. And when you do not have income coming in, and that's where your cash flow need to be managed even more. And at the end of the day, the decisions that were made by these people or these hotels to close are merely on the grounds that they needed to control their cash flow. Of course, there were hotels that were not taking any decision. They continued as is. That's probably because they've got deeper pockets. Yeah, but we did see towards the month of May, June, they started taking similar actions. So COVID-19, I've always been asked this question, how long, when? And I said, look, I cannot tell you, nobody can, because as long as the borders are locked, as long as the flights are not happening, there's no inter-border traveling from Thailand to Malaysia, Singapore to Malaysia, depending. So, of course, how the government is trying to push domestic market, because that's all you can do.
How much has it actually alleviated the impact? I mean, domestic tourism, you know, so with our borders still shut. So, I mean,
well, we did a survey in April, May, and June among our members itself, and we did in the April forecast for the rest of the year 2020, there was an indication of about 25% average occupancy for our members in Malaysia for the year. And I must say that in June, when the doors started opening, RMCO was announced and people started traveling and all that, and until today, and in August, I'm happy to say that the average now has gone up to about 35%.
So that applies across all segments?
All segments, all hotel categories, Sabah, Sarawak, and Peninsula. So there is a growth, definitely. But, you know, what we also see is that the weekends are great. Everybody seems to be going out to resorts, to, you know, out of KL, basically. Unfortunately, with that happening, KL average itself for the hotel industry, occupancy-wise, is only about 20% averagely. And they don't have weekend business, they don't have weekday business. So at the moment now, again, with the support from the government for quarantine hotels, we see that allowing the average to be in the vicinity of 20%. We also see with this push on domestic travel and the government support on meetings, they are giving, but most of them are going out of Kuala Lumpur. Recently, I did speak to the Minister of Tourism and I said, look, we need to push business into KL. We need to push business to some areas of Selangor to encourage domestic travel. I suppose it's a chicken and egg situation. A lot of people will say, what am I going to do in KL? You know, I cannot go shopping all the time. So what can I do in KL? The other question that I've always asked was, if there are a lot of KL and Selangor people going out, surely those from Penang, Pahang, Johor, they must be coming to KL. But the question here is, where are they staying?
So, what's the attraction actually?
What is the attraction? Where are they staying? You know, I mean, we've always had this issue with Airbnb. And I'm glad that the government is now taking a strong point on this, and they actually come up with a paper which will be tabled in the parliament, hopefully this month, if not next month, to regulate Airbnb. I think something we need to understand here is hotel owners spend millions to build the hotel, to maintain the hotel, and they are regulated by so many laws and taxes, etc., etc. However, you know, Airbnb owners, you know, number one, there's no safety.
Yes.
They don't follow any regulations, right? So it does impact the inflow into KL in particular, So the domestic travel has helped, definitely. And I think the government's effort need to be continuous until and when we can open the borders.
So, but you mentioned that the government has actually initiated some support, but what more do you think that they can do actually, the government?
Well, I must first say that, you know, when we've put in our proposal when this COVID-19 came about on the stimulus package, and we've put in almost 23 different proposals or numbers of proposal amounting to 23 numbers, and I'm quite happy to say out of all that, 16.
Okay, not bad.
Very good, actually.
Yeah, not bad.
16 was applied.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, numbers might be different. However, they did take on our proposal, so that's a good part of it. What else can they do? We've always asked them about, you know, if you want to encourage domestic travel, basically you need to then give back to the rakyat of Malaysia, to the people of Malaysia, and one of it could be through the tax relief in terms of traveling domestically. At the moment, it's 1,000 ringgit.
Okay.
We had proposed for 5,000.
Oh, okay.
You know, because honestly, you can't do much with 1,000 ringgit, and it
Yeah,
has
I mean, if
to
you
be
have a family of, a 4 or 5, yeah,
correct.
1,000
And you know,
is not enough.
hotels can provide you a bill,
Yes.
but if you go, and Malaysians love to eat,
Yes, the food.
and we
yeah.
will go to places where there may not be receipts. So how do I submit that
Yes,
in as
true.
a tax relief if somebody
true.
says, show me a receipt, right?
Yeah.
So these are things that we say, you know, again, the government needs to seriously consider this, and we hope, depending on how long more things are going on with this closing of borders and all that, that they can help in this area.
What about the industry itself? I mean, what are they actually doing besides, besides the government support?
Since in April, I took on the role as acting president, and I did a lot of webinars
Okay.
from human resource issues, from what should we do in terms of marketing, what should hotels do now. Yeah, I mean, since April, I've been telling a lot of the hotels through webinars that don't go dark. Meaning you got to continue with your marketing. You got to pull up all your data from your past customers, relook at your customer relationship management system, do promotions.
Yeah, reach out to them and
reach
yeah,
out.
Yeah.
You got to stay close to your clients to say that we are not gone, we are still here. We hope to see you soon, and you know. But what has to come to mind is creativity. When we say to hotels, do promotions, everybody does the same promotion. They cut down on room rates. They offer, you know,
Free meals.
stay 3 nights, pay 2 sort of
Yes.
thing, you know, and everybody does the same. So at the end of the day, what happens here is, and unfortunately, many tourists or travelers goes to the online travel agents such as Agoda, Booking.com, etc., etc. But the hotels pay commission for that. You pay as close to 18 to 22% of the room rate that you are selling. And you can only offer rates there. But if we can encourage, and this is what I've been telling them to do, is use your website
As the tool, yeah.
as the tool, because with the website, going directly to your customer and saying, book directly to us,
Yes.
there are value adds that we can
Yes.
give. You know, whether it's F&B credits, whether it's, you know, upgrades, etc., etc. And we Malaysians love this sort of offer. And apart from that, work with the supply chain, meaning food trails. You know, you go to Penang, you stay with the hotel, but I could work with several restaurants where they could offer you discounts. Go for a durian feast,
Yeah.
you know, that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
Malaysian loves durians anyways.
So
yes, right.
you got to tie back, and this is something that, from the association standpoint, then I had also mentioned to the other partners, such as the travel agents, shopping malls, that we need to work together. There is no way that we can get through COVID on our own. We are partners of the industries. We need to make sure that we are able to work together and drive the domestic market. I think that's something that needs to happen. Even now, next 3 months, next 6 months, I think, until things get a bit better. Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned about, hotels, resort hotels are doing slightly better than the KL city hotels, right? So, like resort hotels, in which state are doing well?
I must say that, surprisingly, Kelantan is doing well.
Oh, okay.
Kelantan's average is about 70%.
All right.
Average, that means weekday, weekend.
Okay. And what's the reason?
Probably the way I see it is that a lot of support coming from the states of Pahang, Terengganu into Kelantan.
Oh,
Okay. And this is something that I've seen myself, the collaboration between the hotel, the cultural section or cultural department, cultural agencies, and other association within Kelantan itself. They have come up with a consensus of saying that visit Kelantan and you get this. You get rooms, you get good food, you get cultural shows. Terengganu, definitely the islands. The islands are doing very well because Malaysians know by middle of November, monsoon
More
comes.
comes, yes.
Bad weather. So forget the East Coast, right? And that's why everybody's rushing there now, you know. And the expatriates who are in Malaysia, or those, we actually do see some people who are stuck here and cannot go back. They actually, literally every weekend go to Terengganu. They fly in either to Kota Baru or Kuala Terengganu, and then you could see them being picked up by a limousine or something, and they are going to the islands. Penang, definitely. Langkawi, yeah, unfortunately now with the Kedah cluster, there's a little bit of a challenge there. Malacca, even Bangkok Islands. So the islands are doing well. States like Johor, Port Dickson, definitely. Port Dickson you forget about going to Port Dickson on the weekends. It's traffic jam. So we see this sort of resorts and states that are doing very well. Yeah, and I think Cameron Highlands is fantastic, business on the weekends. But I think there are a lot more places that a lot of Malaysians are unaware of.
I mean, where there's an influx of tourists, to all this, to the hotels, right? And also with the strict SOP guidelines. So what are the new kind of technology initiatives that actually are implemented by the hotels? So actually, to reduce physical distancing and also improve the sanitization procedures.
Okay. In fact, we, as the lead association in April, I mentioned to the Secretariat to initiate a sanitization, clean and safe sort of manual for our hotels, for our members. And, fortunately for us, we were able to get some information from some international brands that were already rolling out such programs in terms of sanitization. And we managed to then come up with a manual, what we call a clean and safe manual for our members. And happy to say that the Ministry of Tourism actually endorsed that as well. Yeah. And to make sure that the implementation by our members for that clean and safe sanitization program, we also got an independent audit company to actually go and certify these properties. Yeah, there will be, of course, slight costs, but at the end of the day, if you are a certified hotel by an independent company that's done an audit, it will tell and give confidence to the guests,
yes, of course,
that are going to come and stay with you. Yeah.
Halim, you as an experienced hotelier, right? What were the management lessons that you have drawn from this COVID situation?
Don't take things for granted. That's the first one. When times are good, everybody is just comfortable. Yeah. And when COVID came, that's when everybody started saying, the cost containment exercise that we normally do is not enough. The cost management is not enough. Because at the end of the day, how much can you save? I hear this from some of my hotelier colleagues saying that, we've scraped down to the bone. There's just nothing else that can be done. So one other lesson that's to say in scenarios like this is, how do I drive revenue? Because you've scraped right down to the bone and you're still suffering because there's no business coming on the top. So how creative can I be?
You have to look for new opportunities,
got to look for,
right?
Exactly. What is there, whether there's government support, whether there is how the economy can support. And and again, it's a supply chain scenario. If we don't run our restaurants, there's no raw materials being purchased. All the vegetables in Cameron Highland will just be dumped when they rot, right? Etc., etc. So one lesson is, yes, cost management. Can I operate as is in this current scenario? Am I having too much manpower that everybody has become complacent? For the manpower, can I do more than one task? If I'm a receptionist, can I do other things? If I'm a housekeeping, can I do other things?
Yes. Mm.
So all of these scenarios now have come to light that we got to start looking and thinking, how else can I operate from now on? Yeah. Business, definitely, like now you've got no meetings,
Yes.
no international conferences. So hotels that are dependent with large ballrooms, etc., what can I do?
Yeah. They definitely need to retool themselves. So
I think there are a lot of R's involved.
yeah.
The letter R's. You got to realign.
Yeah.
You got to reset. You got to relook at what sort of market that I really have. Am I having just one type of market in my basket? And in hotels, you cannot operate with that. You need to have different segments to help you maintain a base business. Yeah. And if I do have corporate, like in Kuala Lumpur, if corporate is my main business or meetings is my main business, how am I now going to the corporate company and actually say, you know, is anyone traveling? Your domestic, now that the domestic travel is allowed, is anybody coming up to Kuala Lumpur or going out of Kuala Lumpur? Hotels got to start looking at longer term rates as opposed to day rates to a company. I also hear some hotels actually converting some of their rooms into small offices.
Yes.
So you got to diversify, definitely. And you mentioned earlier about whether hotels have they gone digital enough
Yes.
to reduce contacts and all that. That's one area. But the other area is the marketing side. You need to go digital as well. Yeah. Until today, there are some companies that don't allow people to visit the companies, for sales call. So how do I reach out to them? And this is where we have got applications in our devices. Hotels can come up with their own apps. You can work with the third-party apps. But the point here is you need to be able to reach your client, and they need to be able to reach you. Right? And I think that's important.
Yeah. So Halim, when do you think the hotel business or hotel owners actually will see some light at the end of the tunnel?
Again, as I mentioned earlier, very hard to say. There have been talks by the ministry or G2G with regards to travel bubbles and all that. I think as much as I want the business to start flowing again from international market, we got to always evaluate the risk factor, because, and we've read it in the news or we've heard it from our Prime Minister, the country cannot go into another lockdown. But in order for us not to go into lockdown, then domestically our locals, the rakyat of Malaysia, the people of Malaysia need to abide to SOPs. And even like the travel, regulated travel from Singapore to Malaysia, even that needs to be controlled properly. Yeah. I've been called by some of the airlines before to say that how can now they do a point to point, So Emirates, for example, said they can do Dubai, Kuala Lumpur, Dubai.
Okay.
And how can we open the travel bubble? I said, for the airlines, they require 3 days prior testing. And many a times we hear the case coming about due to the flight, whether you're at the airport or in the plane. So the question now is, if 14 days is the period that we got to check in terms of whether someone is safe or not. So if somebody decides to travel from Dubai here, needs to already be quarantined 14 days before.
Yes.
And then do the testing. And then when they get here, at least we know they've been quarantined for 14 days. And vice versa when they go back. A simple scenario, when we talk about business, you've got the offshore rigs for the petroleum companies. They got to have every 2 weeks changing of guards from the rigs coming back to mainland. Now the petroleum company has a policy whereby those going out to the rigs have to be quarantined 14 days before, and vice versa, those coming back from the rig, before they go anywhere, they got to be quarantined another 14 days. That's business for the hotel, right? But this is again where the hoteliers need to go out and look for this sort of business, because the rigs are running, exploration is happening,
Yes.
and these are the business that you need to go and reach out to it. Now, everybody will definitely go and look for that business, and there's only so much that can be shared. But that's one of the example that we can look at.
Thank you, Halim, for coming on our show.
Most welcome.
We were speaking to Mohamad Halim Merican, the board member of the Malaysian Association of Hotels. Check us out on biztech.asia for insightful conversations.